I'm trying to act all professional-ated and shit with my fancy new bench supplies. Oh my. I ordered 100 Soviet-era vacuum fluorescent display tubes, 7-segment display tubes, because I wanted to use them to build like a front panel for a Z80 machine, for the Z80 Funtime project, and they were much cheaper per unit if I bought 100 of them rather than 6 of them. So if any of you guys need any Soviet-era vacuum fluorescent display 7-segment display tubes, you know, let me know. I guess I'll sell them on eBay maybe. Anyhow, yeah, so this is the new power supply here. I'll turn them off. I just wanted to see the shiny bright lights. It's not a variable current power supply like this top one. So this one, you know, it's still very useful. It's just can't output very much power either. That old 6216. I mean, it's a good supply, but this one's got an 1.5 amp 5-volt supply, and then it's got two variable output supplies at 0.5 amp that range from 0 to 20 volts, and all of these supplies on the thing are fully isolated from each other. So I can like center tap these two and get plus and minus 12 volts, or plus 24 volts out of here, which will be especially useful for testing those vacuum fluorescent display tubes, but also for working on computer stuff. I've been meaning to get something like this for some time, and this one's not in the greatest shape, but the price was right. I cleaned it up some. It looked like it spent the past 50 years at the bottom of a sewer, but it seems to work okay. I cleaned the workbench off for the first time since I started having calves. Now we can actually do something. But before we do something, I just wanted to let you all know that I haven't forgotten about the riser for the PS2 Model 25286. I haven't forgotten about that project. It's just a lot of PC board layout to do with that, and that's something that I can do while I'm listening to my YouTube shows tomorrow, which I can't do while I'm trying to film. So I think that'll be a more efficient use of my time. Sorry I'm so slow and so easily distracted, but we'll get there eventually, maybe someday before I die. So in the meantime, here's some exciting shit that dovetails in with Z80 Funtime. I've been meaning to get one of these for a while anyway. This is the RC2014 kit. It's a fairly simple backplane based Z80 computer. They've got a couple of different versions, but this one comes with a CF card interface, the CPU interface, a paged ROM module so you can start different shit off of the ROM. There's a 64K RAM card. For some reason I was thinking it came with 512K RAM, but we can build our own RAM card at some point. This is a clock module. This is a serial port module, and I think that's it. I got a few proto boards for it too, you know, so we can build some stuff on there. We've got to assemble the backplane and everything though. It runs off of USB power and shit. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna assemble some of it this evening. I don't intend for this to replace our lovely Z80 Funtime project, if you remember it, but now that we have successfully, you know, explored the CPU, you know, in previous videos, keeping it on the breadboard and fucking around with it that way is just kind of error prone and pain in the ass with all these wires all over the place doing shit. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm going to build my own shit and then assemble the RC2014 equivalent, and the way I'm going to do that, I think, is I'm going to just take a piece of breadboard and stick it onto one of these proto boards, and I guess what this means is that all of these are all strapped right here, so I assume that means I can solder in the you know, the right angle header that plugs into the backplane, and then I can put like a straight header right up here on top of it, and then I'll be able to just, you know, jump from that straight header up here onto the breadboard to connect up shit and stuff. So I think that'll be useful. So I don't know, maybe I can even jigger up some way to run a ribbon cable to this thing. I don't know, I'll fart around with it here at some point and see. The CPU module, as you can see, is very, very simple. It's basically the same thing that we had on our breadboard before. Remember, we'd strapped some stuff to high and low. These resistors pull some of those signals high. And there's a bypass capacitor here. I had 2 bypass capacitors on our breadboard, but that probably doesn't make too much difference. And then the rest of the CPU signals on this card are just broken out to this RC2014 bus. You can see some signal descriptions there on the backplane. It's just the Z80 CPU bus, except it's got an optional high 8 data lines that I don't think are ever actually used for anything, and some like 8 unused pins down here at the bottom for modules communicating with each other outside of the bus or something, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna assemble the backplane, and I'm gonna assemble the CPU module, and then we'll return to this. Remember how we were talking about a ROM and and a 2K RAM and doing the address decoding and shit with this? We'll get back to this, except we'll do it, you know, on one of these boards, so it'll plug into the backplane, and then yeah, then we'll keep building stuff up slowly. This, though, is what is eventually going to turn into our CPU card. I've just got one of these vector boards, and we'll prototype this on some breadboard here at some point. But so the RC2014 bus is unbuffered. That displeases me because these CMOS CPUs and shit can't source a whole lot of current, so we have to use like HCT logic everywhere, low power stuff, and I don't stock much HCT logic. So the CPU card that we eventually build is going to have it's going to use LS logic. It's going to have a buffered a buffered bus here. The CPU will be up here, and then this other socket here is for a Z8014 DMA controller, which will be decoded by, I mean, the control ports for that will be decoded by this 22V10 GAL. The way the bus works is it uses pin headers, so you know, it's cheap to build and shit, and there's one long pin header that's got the most commonly used signals on it, and then there's like this shorter pin header right here that's got a bunch of not quite so often used signals on it, like the non-maskable interrupt and the wait and the bus request and halt and bus acknowledge and all that shit. And there's some serial port signals on there too, the hardware handshaking for the serial port. The trick's gonna be keeping all of this shit straight while I solder it together. Alright, that's those are straight. Of course, I can't get every other one because the spacing of the thingamajigs isn't the same as the spacing of the spacing of the slots isn't the same as the horizontal spacing of the pin headers. So every other one is offset by like half of a pin width, so this doesn't work for all of them. So I guess I'll solder in these, and then I guess I'll sacrifice a couple of pieces of header or something and make a jig. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Well, that was time consuming. Well, I yanked some pins out of every other spot in this single row header to make a jig to hold this shit in the right place. Well, it's not perfect, but I guess the cards won't be either. But Lee, you did it wrong, you're saying. You're supposed to put the lowest profile things in first. Well, all these bypass caps go here on the 5-volt rail on this bus, and I was afraid if I soldered them in first, they'd get in the way of these female headers being straight, you know what I'm saying? So that's the reasoning behind that, for whatever it's worth. Speaking of those bypass capacitors, I guess it is about that time. Oh, if I were any more blind, I don't know what I would do with myself. Not see, I guess. There she is, 3:30. Alright. Now let's see, then there was a 2K2 over here. That was these, right? Now, because I'm anally retentive, I always make the tolerance stripe face the same way on all the resistors, because I have a problem. So did my old man. It must be genetic. Yeah. Yay. Alright, let's see. There's a switch here. Very good. I wasn't planning on using the barrel jack, but I guess I'll solder it on there anyway. Alright. Assuming I didn't melt the bastard, that should do that. Well, the pictificator on the internet shows those two capacitor pads unpopulated, but being the anally retentive completionist that I am, I think that I shall populate them. What have we got here? That is Chinese garbage. Well, I don't have so many 100 microfarad capacitors. I kind of hate to use them up, but I guess that's what they're for. Oh, shush. I've only got two little tiny ones. I'll use a big one, I guess. 100 microfluids on the board. Get down in there, shit ass. See, I think the solder joints look better if you reflow them after you trim it. Alright, 10 microfruits. What do we got here? Nichicon, 10 microfarad, 50 volt. That'll do her. Well, they don't exactly match, but c'est la vie. Should I go ahead and put the regulator on there? No. No. Oh, that's... Okay, you jump that when you're powering it off of 5 volts, and you remove that when you install the voltage regulator. I see. Haha, you know what would have been silly is if I'd accidentally put that in backwards. Wouldn't that have been amusing? That must be the ground side of that one. That looks shatty. Shatty. Gonna have to pump up the volume on that to get a good joint, I think. I'm gonna give my poor soldering iron a complex, changing the temperature all the time. Okay. Oh, just for the sake of completeness, I guess. I guess we ought to install the regulator, huh? It is a 7805, isn't it? Yeah. Should have had a big pad there for that thing to sink heat straight into without solder mask on it. Oh well, whatever. Now let me see here. This thing goes down here. Stick that little guy on there to try to keep it from going cattywampus when it heats up. That ought to have her. There's our RC2014 Backplane. Let's put some juice on it and see what happens. Well, my grabber won't hold on that thingaroo. This is a little funk tiddly. Why is the power switch not powerifying? The barrel jack is the only thing that's switched. This screw terminal contraption goes straight to the bus. Well, ain't that something? That's with the voltage regulator. That's without the 5 volt direct power jumper installed. So probably not getting the right voltage here. Yeah, it's putting out 3.8. Now, if we shortify that, we ought to have 5, and the regulator will be not in the equation. Okay, very good. So I guess we'll just have to power it that way. Alright, so there's the RC2014 backplane board all done. While the 75% IPA, since I can't get 99 around here very easily, dries off of this thing and makes a film that I'll have to brush off later. My thoughts on the thing. Okay, so it's a little bit aggravating that the headers here don't, only every other one lines up with a pin header like this, so you can't really hold everything straight unless you make yourself a couple of these things by sacrificing some pin headers. If you don't have any pin headers like this, I guess it might make things a little more difficult. You can probably solder them in one at a time, just inserting it and then soldering on each end, like taping it in there or something and soldering on each end, and then, you know, while it's down like this, and then picking it up and adjusting the pushing in on it to make sure the pin's fully seated and get each end straight by hand like this, and then solder the rest of it. Would probably work alright, although it would be a little more time consuming than, you know, putting everything together right and just flipping it over and doing it. The LED is really bright. That's kind of a nitpick. I'm not trying to be a douchebag about that or anything, but I'll probably replace this 330 ohm resistor with a 470 ohm or something like that, just to dim that LED a little bit. It's very, very bright. I probably didn't need to install these capacitors or this voltage regulator because I'm never going to run the thing off of 12 volts, but I am nothing if not an OCD completionist, so that stuff's in there. The regulator, there's solder mask underneath of the metal tab on the regulator, so it's not going to sink as well into the ground plane on the PC board, the heat I mean. And I guess I could have left it stick up. I almost did this actually. I almost let it stick up and then stuck a heat sink on the back of it like that, but I figured that it'd be tacky and might get in the way of one of these cards or the other, so I didn't, because I'm never going to be running it on 12 volts anyway. So this screw header for power bypasses the power switch. I guess if you're running it off of an external power supply that's already got a switch on it, that's fine, but that was kind of disappointing to me. I may actually rejigger that so that it actually goes through this power switch. I'd have to run a jumper wire on the bottom, but that's no big deal, and cut a trace here up close to yeah, I'd have to just cut a trace right there up close to the thing. I used oh, what is it, a 7805, I think? Yeah. Here, just a linear regulator. They make switching regulators that are you know, compatible with the 7805, so if you used something like that there, it would probably be more efficient and not generate as much heat. So if you're running a whole shitload of cards, the 7805s only go to 1.5 amps, I think. That's my thoughts on the RC2014 backplane. Next, I guess we will assemble the CPU card, since we have already implemented this on the breadboard. The CPU card is very, very simple. It's unbuffered. The way this is set up, it's not going to be able to drive a whole lot of high-powered logic. I think all these cards, yeah, they call for HCT parts, which are electrically compatible with LSTTL logic, but are CMOS internally. They don't draw nearly as much power, and that's probably the reason for that. HCT parts are a little cheaper too, but they can't source as much current, and so I don't stock many of them, because, you know, like when I'm fixing old shit, you know, I usually need to use LS logic. because it can source more power for old shit, you know what I'm saying? Anyhow, that's it for this one. I'll go edit this bastard and post it, and hopefully by that time all of this alcohol, 75% alcohol, will be dried up and I can stick the feet on this thing. I'm out of brake cleaner. I usually clean PC boards with brake cleaner, and it gets all of this rosin off of here very well, but that 75% IPA, I buy it from a farm supply store. It's for veterinary use. It's in gallon jugs. It's all I can get locally without paying like ridiculous shipping fees for like flammable substances, you know. So that's pretty aggravating. I'll have to clean that up better later. But after I stick the feet on, if I spray it with brake cleaner, it'll just eat the glue right off of them and they'll fall off. So I don't know. I guess maybe I'll stick some standoffs in here for now, and it can sit on them, and then I'll take them off and put the feet on later. Alright, that's it for RC2014 Backplane. I'll see you next time.